The war room of the Galactic Command Center existed in a state of perpetual twilight, its once gleaming surfaces now dulled by years of conflict and mounting desperation. Holographic displays flickered with the grim mathematics of defeat, star systems reduced to ash, entire civilizations flickering like dying candles against the vast darkness of space. The room itself seemed to breathe with a collective exhale of hopelessness. Ambassador Krell of the Zorian Confederacy, a crystalline being whose translucent body reflected the dying light of the holographic maps, slowly rotated his prismatic form. His species had once been the most advanced technological civilization in the known galaxy, masters of energy manipulation and quantum engineering. Now they were reduced to watching their civilization crumble beneath the relentless assault of the Void Swarm. "We have lost 97% of our combined fleet," spoke Diplomat Sarax, a serpentine representative from the Hydron Collective. Her voice carried the weight of centuries of accumulated knowledge, now seemingly worthless against the mechanical plague consuming their civilization. "The Void Swarm adapts faster than we can generate defensive strategies. Our most advanced predictive algorithms have become nothing more than elaborate graveyards of failed calculations." Michael Thompson stood at the periphery of the gathering, an unexpected presence among the galaxy's most senior diplomatic and military leaders. At 35, he was the youngest human ever appointed to the Galactic Diplomatic Court, and currently the only human in this room. His dark skin glistened with a thin layer of nervous sweat, hands clasped behind his back to hide their slight trembling. The human had been assigned as an observer, a diplomatic courtesy that felt more like a calculated insult. Most galactic civilizations view humanity as a young, primitive species, too aggressive, too unpredictable, too caught up in their own internal conflicts to be considered a serious player in interstellar politics. Yet here he was, watching the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy fall one by one. Krell's crystalline form pulsed with complex internal lights, a language of emotion incomprehensible to most biological beings. "We have exhausted every strategic option," he announced, his words translated through a series of complex linguistic matrices. "The Void Swarm is not merely a technological threat. It represents a fundamental violation of our understanding of technological evolution." The holographic displays told a terrifying story. Where once hundreds of thousands of ships representing the combined might of galactic civilizations had existed, now only scattered remnants remained. The Void Swarm moved with a precision that defied traditional understanding of warfare, each encounter revealing new adaptive capabilities that rendered previous defensive strategies instantly obsolete. Michael knew he was taking an enormous risk. Protocol suggested he remain silent, an impartial observer to the unfolding galactic catastrophe. But something burned within him, a spark of human audacity that had defined his species' short but tumultuous journey into space. "What about Earth?" The words escaped before he could stop himself. A collective silence descended upon the room. Every being turned to look at him, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt. Sarax's serpentine features twisted into what might have been a smile on a more humanoid face. "Humanity? You mean the species that has spent more time fighting itself than exploring the galaxy? The civilization that was deemed too volatile to be trusted with advanced diplomatic relations?" Michael stood his ground. He knew the reputation of humanity, a species that had transformed its most brutal internal conflicts into a crucible of technological innovation. Earth's history was a tapestry of continuous warfare, each conflict driving technological advancement at a pace that defied galactic norms. "We have been preparing," Michael said quietly, "not for exploration, not for peaceful expansion, but for exactly this kind of existential threat." The holographic displays seemed to pause, as if the very technology sensed the weight of his words. Krell's crystalline body refracted light in a pattern that suggested deep contemplation. "Explain," demanded the Zorian ambassador. And in that moment, Michael Thompson understood that humanity's moment had arrived. The galaxy would either embrace their unique approach to survival or perish beneath the mechanical tide of the Void Swarm. The dying embers of hope flickered and began, ever so slightly, to glow brighter. The United Earth Naval Experimental Shipyard orbited Jupiter, a masterpiece of human engineering deliberately hidden from most of humanity, and absolutely all of the galactic community. Massive electromagnetic shields rippled around the facility, creating a distortion field that made the shipyard virtually undetectable to any conventional scanning technology. Captain Karen Williams stood on the primary observation deck, her reflection ghosting against the reinforced transparent aluminum that separated her from the vast expanse of space. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight military bun, silver-streaked at the temples, a testament to years of classified service that most of humanity would never know existed. "System diagnostic complete," announced a voice that was neither fully human nor completely synthetic. The ship's integrated intelligence system, nicknamed Ghost, spoke with an unsettling combination of clinical precision and near-emotional nuance. Quantum drive stability at 99.7%. Adaptive armor systems fully operational. Experimental quantum disruptors charged and calibrated. The UES Defiant was not just a warship. It was the culmination of humanity's most paranoid, most brilliant defensive strategy. Developed in absolute secrecy, the vessel represented decades of research born from humanity's most traumatic conflicts, both terrestrial and a handful of early, hushed encounters with extraterrestrial life. Karen traced her fingers along the holographic interface, bringing up layer after layer of system specifications. Each subsystem was a marvel of human ingenuity. Technologies that deliberately broke every known galactic standard of ship design. Where alien civilizations pursued efficiency and elegant solutions, the Defiant was built with redundancy, adaptability, and raw destructive potential. "Ghost," she said quietly, "run probability scenarios for the Void Swarm encounter." The holographic display erupted with a cascade of mathematical projections. Millions of potential combat scenarios played out in microseconds, each one a complex dance of potential destruction. Most simulations showed catastrophic failure, but humanity had never been a species that accepted impossible odds. A communication alert interrupted the display. Michael Thompson's face appeared, the transmission encrypted through layers of quantum encoding that would make most galactic communication systems weep in frustration. His eyes were bright with a mixture of hope and barely contained anxiety. "We're being called up," Michael said, his voice tight. "The Galactic Command wants a human presence in the fight." Karen's laugh was sharp, almost musical. "They don't want a presence. They want a sacrificial lamb." Her fingers danced across the interface, bringing up the classified files of humanity's previous extraterrestrial encounters. Each one was a study in misunderstanding, conflict, and humanity's remarkable ability to survive against impossible odds. The ship's design reflected humanity's unique approach to survival. Modular weapon systems that could reconfigure mid-battle. Adaptive armor that learned from each impact. An AI system that was less a computer and more a combat partner. Ghost was not just a navigation or tactical system. It was a thinking, adaptive entity that understood human unpredictability as its primary strategic advantage. "Probability of successful mission?" Karen asked, knowing the answer would be complex. Ghost's response was immediate. "Statistical models suggest a 12.4% chance of mission success using conventional galactic warfare strategies. However, utilizing human tactical approaches, mission success probability increases to 43.6%. The difference was quintessentially human, the willingness to embrace chaos as a strategic tool. Memories flickered through Karen's mind. The early days of human space exploration. The brutal conflicts that had driven technological innovation. The quiet, classified missions that had taught humanity that the universe was far more dangerous and complex than anyone imagined. "Prepare launch sequences," she commanded. The shipyard around her hummed with anticipation. Electromagnetic shields adjusted, creating a protective cocoon around the Defiant. Quantum drives began their complex initialization sequences. Weapon systems came online with a silent, deadly precision. Michael's transmission continued, "They don't understand what they're asking for," he said. "They see us as a last resort." Karen's smile was predatory. "We're not a last resort. We're humanity's first true weapon of galactic warfare." The Defiant began to move, its very existence a statement of human defiance. Not a ship of exploration, not a vessel of peaceful contact, but a pure instrument of survival designed to push back against the darkness that threatened to consume everything. The forgotten weapon was about to be unleashed. The Galactic Research Consortium's primary analysis chamber was a marvel of interdimensional engineering. Holographic displays shifted and morphed, capturing every minute detail of the human warship that had been delivered for comprehensive technological assessment. Researchers from 17 different star-spanning civilizations gathered around the captured schematics of the UES Defiant, their collective confusion palpable. Dr. Zara Kellen, lead xenotechnological researcher from the Proxima cluster, adjusted her multispectral scanning interface. Her tentacular appendages moved with precise, almost mechanical efficiency as she attempted to make sense of the ship's incomprehensible design. "This is not a warship," she muttered, more to herself than to her colleagues. "This is a deliberate violation of every known principle of spacecraft engineering." The Defiant schematics defied conventional understanding. Where galactic warships were designed with sleek, energy-efficient geometries that minimized resource consumption and maximized computational efficiency, this human vessel looked like it had been constructed by a committee of war-obsessed engineers suffering from a collective fever dream. Modular panels could reconfigure in microseconds. Weapon systems seemed to breathe with an almost organic adaptability. The power distribution network ignored every established principle of energy management, instead creating a web of redundancies that looked more like a biological neural network than a technological system. "Look here," interrupted Dr. Krell, the crystalline researcher from the Zorian Confederacy. His prismatic body refracted the holographic displays, casting rainbow-like projections across the analysis chamber. "The power conduits, they're not optimized. They're deliberately inefficient." Most technological civilizations pursued a singular goal in spacecraft design: maximum efficiency, energy conservation, predictable performance, mathematically perfect systems that could be calculated and counter-calculated with absolute precision. The human ship was an antithesis to this philosophy. "Inefficient," scoffed Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the human representative assigned to the research team. "It's adaptive. Each inefficiency is actually a deliberate design choice that allows for rapid reconfiguration." The ship's computational core was particularly baffling. Most advanced civilizations used quantum computing systems that approached problems with cold, mathematical precision. The Defiant system, which the humans called Ghost, seemed to operate on entirely different principles. "It's not an eye," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her hands moving animatedly. "It's a combat partner. Watch." The holographic display shifted, showing combat simulations, where traditional AI systems would calculate the most mathematically optimal response. Ghost introduced deliberate variations, unexpected maneuvers, tactical choices that defied predictive modeling. "Chaos as a strategic advantage," muttered Dr. Kellen, her multiple eyes blinking in rapid succession, a sign of profound confusion among her species. The weapon systems were equally perplexing. Laser arrays that could reconfigure mid-battle. Missile launchers with adaptive targeting systems that seemed to learn and modify their approach with each deployment. Defensive systems that didn't just absorb or deflect damage, but actively studied and adapted to incoming threats. "They've weaponized unpredictability," Dr. Krell observed, his crystalline form pulsing with complex internal light patterns that suggested deep contemplation. Each subsystem told a story of human development. The quantum disruptors bore markings of research conducted during Earth's most brutal conflicts. Armor plating showed signs of constant modification, each layer a testament to lessons learned from previous encounters. The communication systems were a nightmare of encrypted layers, designed not for elegant transmission but for absolute security. Dr. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. The other researchers were missing the fundamental truth about human technological development. Every other galactic civilization pursued technological perfection. Humanity pursued survival. Our technology doesn't aim to be perfect, she explained. It aims to win. The researchers exchanged glances. Winning was not always the primary objective in galactic technological development. Optimization, efficiency, peaceful integration. These were the typical goals. But humans, they designed technology like they were preparing for a war that hadn't happened yet. Imagine, Dr. Kellen said softly, a species that develops technology not as a tool of exploration or peaceful progress, but as a weapon of absolute last resort. The holographic displays continued to cycle through the Defiance specifications. Each rotation revealed another layer of deliberate, controlled chaos, a technological philosophy that rejected every established galactic norm. Humanity had not just built a warship. They had created a statement of technological rebellion. The moment of first engagement arrived with a silence that defied expectation. Space, typically a realm of violent explosions and energy discharges, became a canvas of calculated madness. Captain Karen Williams gripped the command interface of the UES Defiant, her breathing slow and controlled. Around her, the ship's interior pulsed with a living energy, subsystems communicating in a language that was part technological, part something entirely new. "Ghost," she murmured, "tactical assessment." The ship's integrated intelligence responded instantly. Void swarm formation approaching. Conventional survival probability, 3.2%. Unconventional approach probability, 46.7%. The void swarm appeared like a mechanical nightmare. Thousands of interconnected vessels that moved with a precision that bordered on mathematical perfection. Each ship was a component of a larger, almost sentient network. They had consumed entire civilizations, adapting with each encounter, learning and improving with a speed that defied biological understanding. But they had never encountered a human warship. The first salvo came from the Void Swarm, a coordinated energy discharge calculated to overwhelm any known defensive system. Predictive algorithms suggested total destruction within 2.7 seconds of initial contact. The Defiant moved. It wasn't a movement that followed any known law of space combat. Where traditional vessels would dodge or shield, the human ship did something entirely different. It twisted. It fragmented. Individual weapon systems detached and reconnected in microseconds. Armor plates shifted like living tissue, absorbing and redistributing incoming energy in patterns that completely shattered the swarm's targeting systems. "Introducing controlled chaos," Ghost announced, almost with a hint of excitement. Karen watched as the ship's systems did something unprecedented. They intentionally introduced errors, slight miscalculations, unpredictable variables that made the Defiant's movements impossible to predict. Laser barrages missed by impossible margins. Missile trajectories twisted in curves that defied standard ballistic mathematics. The Void Swarm's collective intelligence began to falter. Each of their ships was designed to learn from previous encounters, but learning required a baseline of predictability. The Defiant provided nothing of the sort. It was a living contradiction, a vessel that broke every rule of technological engagement. "System diagnostic," Karen commanded. Ghost's response was immediate. Weapon systems operating at 97.3% efficiency. Adaptive camouflage functioning. Energy redistribution at maximum flexibility. The battle transformed into a dance of controlled chaos. Where other civilizations saw warfare as a mathematical equation, humans saw it as a form of improvised art. The Defiant moved like something alive, not a machine, but a predator. Void Swarm vessels began to fall, not through overwhelming firepower, but through complete systemic confusion. Their perfectly calculated movements became erratic. Targeting systems collapsed. Interconnected networks began to fragment. "They're learning the wrong lessons," Ghost observed. The AI's voice carried a complexity that was part calculation, part something almost resembling amusement. Karen understood. The Void Swarm was trying to adapt to the Defiant's tactics by introducing its own form of randomness. But human-designed randomness was fundamentally different. It wasn't just statistical noise. It was purposeful unpredictability. Communications channels from the Allied fleet began to light up. Shocked transmissions, disbelief, confusion. What in the collective quantum networks is happening? Came a transmission from a Zorian battlecruiser. The Defiant continued its impossible dance. Weapon systems that should have been disabled reconfigured. Armor plating that should have been breached simply reshaped itself. The ship moved not like a technological instrument, but like a living organism with a singular purpose: survival. In less than 17 minutes, the initial Void Swarm assault force, designed to consume entire planetary systems, was reduced to scattered debris. Mission completion, Ghost announced. Tactical efficiency, 82.6%. Karen allowed herself a slight smile. The galaxy was about to learn a fundamental truth about humanity. They didn't just fight wars. They'd reimagined them. The first contact was complete. The unexpected had become reality. The first human reinforcements arrived like a storm of technological diversity. No two ships looked alike, a radical departure from the uniform fleets of other galactic civilizations, where alien armadas presented a picture of mathematical precision. The human reinforcement wave looked like a controlled explosion of military innovation. Fleet Admiral Robert Chen watched from the command hub of the United Earth Naval Coordination Center. Holographic displays tracked each incoming vessel, each one a unique testament to human ingenuity. Some ships were massive bruiser-class vessels with armor that looked like it could withstand a planet-killer assault. Others were sleek, almost predatory craft that seemed to slip between sensor readings like ghosts. "Incoming transmission," announced the communication officer. Multiple human squadron leaders requesting tactical coordination. But coordination was a loose term. These weren't traditional military units. They were independent operators, each with their own modified systems, each bringing a unique approach to the ongoing conflict. The first wave included the UES Defiant's Immediate Support Group, the IMS Thunderbolt, a heavy assault cruiser with experimental pulse cannons that could reconfigure mid-battle, the US Nighthawk, a stealth vessel that seemed to exist between electromagnetic spectrums, the ECS Prometheus, a research vessel retrofitted with weapons systems that bordered on experimental madness. Admiral Chen understood the fundamental philosophy behind this approach. Humanity had never believed in putting all its eggs in one basket. Diversity was survival. Adaptability was strength. Alien military analysts watching the incoming human fleet began to experience what could only be described as technological vertigo. These weren't just ships. They were living systems, each with its own unique combat DNA. The Zorian military attaché, a crystalline being named Krell, watched the incoming fleet with a mixture of horror and fascination. "They're not following any known fleet deployment protocols," he muttered. "There's no central command structure, no unified design philosophy." Which was precisely the point. Each human vessel communicated differently. Some used standard quantum encryption. Others employed bizarre communication methods that seemed to dance between different technological wavelengths. Their tactical networks were less a structured system and more a living, breathing organism of information exchange. "Multiple tactical approaches detected," reported the Coordination Center's primary AI system. Recommendation: unable to provide standardized response. The reinforcement wave hit the combat zone like a hurricane of technological rebellion. Where the Void Swarm expected uniform responses, they encountered something entirely different. Ships that could modify their entire operational profile in microseconds. Weapon systems that learned and adapted with each encounter. Captain Karen Williams, still commanding the Defiant, watched the incoming fleet with a sense of pride. "Look at them," she said to Ghost. "Each one is fighting its own war." The AI's response was instantaneous. Collective individual approach. Maximum adaptability. Minimum predictability. One particular engagement illustrated the human approach perfectly. The INS Thunderbolt found itself surrounded by a void swarm squadron that should have overwhelmed it by all mathematical projections. Instead of traditional defensive maneuvers, the ship began to literally come apart. Modular sections detached, weapon systems reconfigured. What looked like a desperate act of disintegration was actually a deliberate tactical dissolution. The Void Swarm's targeting systems collapsed as the Thunderbolt transformed from a single vessel into a distributed combat network. "They're fighting like a school of fish," one alien observer noted. "No central brain. Total distributed intelligence." Within hours, the human reinforcement wave had transformed the entire strategic landscape. The Void Swarm's perfectly calculated assault patterns began to fail. Their ability to learn and adapt was being overwhelmed by an approach that defied learning. Pure, controlled chaos. Admiral Chen allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment. Not through peaceful exploration, not through diplomatic engagement, but by understanding one fundamental truth. Survival belongs to those willing to break every rule. The reinforcement wave continued. More ships arrived, each one different. Each one a middle finger to the universe's established rules of warfare. The galaxy was about to learn what human reinforcements truly meant. The critical moment arrived with a silence that seemed to stretch across light years. Captain Karen Williams stood motionless on the bridge of the UES Defiant, her eyes locked on the holographic display that mapped the increasingly desperate battle against the Void Swarm. "Ghost," she said quietly, "run a full strategic analysis." The ship's integrated intelligence system responded instantly. Millions of potential scenarios cascaded through quantum processors, each calculation a universe of potential outcomes. The display around Karen erupted with a complex tapestry of probability, mathematical possibilities that would drive most biological minds to madness. "Primary analysis complete," Ghost announced. "Void Swarm Central Command Node identified. Total mission success probability, 14.3% using conventional strategies. Probability increases to 46.7% using unconventional human approach." The Central Command Node was the heart of the Void Swarm's collective intelligence, a massive construct that existed between traditional space and quantum realms, a technological marvel that had consumed entire civilizations. Every previous encounter had resulted in total destruction of attempting forces. But humanity had never been a species that accepted impossible odds. Karen understood the fundamental calculation. To defeat the Void Swarm, they would need to become the weapon themselves. The Defiant would need to transform from a warship into a living sacrifice, a focal point that would draw in the entire enemy fleet and create a window of total strategic victory. "Survival is not the primary objective," Ghost continued, its voice carrying an unusual depth of understanding. "Mission completion is the primary objective." The bridge crew, a mixture of human officers and integrated AI interfaces, watched in absolute silence. They understood what was about to happen. The ship would become a deliberate point of maximum vulnerability, drawing the full might of the Void Swarm into a position of total exposure. Admiral Robert Chen's voice crackled through the communication channel. "Williams, your tactical proposal is suicidal." Karen interrupted. "Mathematically improbable." "Absolutely." Her fingers danced across the interface. The Defiant's modular systems began to reconfigure. Weapon systems that would typically provide defensive capabilities were being transformed into elaborate lures. Power distribution networks were being deliberately destabilized, not through weakness, but through a carefully calculated form of controlled chaos. Ghost began to sing. It wasn't music in any traditional sense. It was a complex mathematical symphony, a communication protocol that bridged the gap between biological intuition and machine precision. The ship itself began to pulse with an energy that defied conventional understanding. "We are not just a weapon," Ghost said, its voice carrying something remarkably close to emotion. "We are a statement." The alien fleet watching the human vessel couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. Traditional military doctrine suggested retreat, self-preservation, maintaining strategic assets. The Defiant was doing the exact opposite, transforming itself into a deliberate point of maximum vulnerability. Void swarm sensors began to lock onto the human vessel. Thousands of ships, each a perfect component of a larger, almost living technological network, began to converge. Their collective intelligence saw a perfect opportunity for total annihilation. They didn't understand they were walking into a trap. "Final system check," Karen commanded. Ghost's response was immediate. All systems operating at maximum inefficiency. Controlled chaos protocols engaged. Mission objective: maximum strategic disruption. The human philosophy of warfare was never about perfect defense. It was about creating opportunities through controlled unpredictability. Where other civilizations saw a ship preparing for destruction, the Defiant was actually creating the most elaborate combat scenario in galactic history. Initiating primary engagement sequence, Karen said quietly. The universe seemed to hold its breath. The Defiant would not survive this encounter. But survival was never the point. The mission was everything. And humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The silence that followed was more profound than any weapon discharge in galactic history. Where moments before there had been a massive combat zone teeming with void swarm vessels, now only scattered debris remained. And at the center, the fractured remnants of the UES Defiant. Initial reports from the surviving Allied fleet were incoherent. Transmission logs captured fragments of disbelief. Sensor recordings showed something that defied every known principle of warfare. The human vessel had not just destroyed the void swarm. It had utterly dismantled the entire mechanical civilization's core command structure. Admiral Robert Chen stood before the Galactic Council, his dress uniform crisp, his posture betraying no emotion. The chamber, typically a place of diplomatic subtlety, now felt like a courtroom where humanity was both defendant and unexpected savior. "The void swarm is completely neutralized," he stated, not as a boast, not as a celebration, simply a fact. Diplomatic representatives from 17 different star systems stared in various states of shock. The Zorian crystal being Ambassador Krell shifted his prismatic form, his internal lights pulsing with complex emotional patterns that suggested a complete recalibration of understanding. "Explain," demanded the Hydran Collective's senior representative. "How is this possible?" Chen's presentation began. Holographic displays showed the Defiant's final moments, not as a heroic last stand, but as a calculated piece of strategic genius. The ship had transformed itself into a living weapon, a deliberate vulnerability that drew the entire void swarm into a perfectly constructed trap. Ghost's final transmission played. Not a military report, but something closer to a philosophical statement. Survival is a calculation. Victory is a choice. The technological analysis was even more shocking. The Defiant had not just fought a battle. It had fundamentally rewritten the rules of technological warfare. Modular systems that could reconfigure mid-combat. An AI that understood human unpredictability as its primary strategic advantage. Weapon systems that learned and adapted with each microsecond of engagement. "We did not develop this technology for exploration," Chen explained. "We developed it for survival." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just defeated the void swarm. They had demonstrated a fundamentally different approach to technological development, to warfare, to existence itself. Captain Karen Williams, who had miraculously survived the battle, was called to testify. Her report was clinical, almost understated. She described the mission not as a heroic endeavor, but as a mathematical solution to an existential problem. "The void swarm understood optimization," she said. "We understand adaptation." The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted 3 standard days. Debates raged about humanity's sudden emergence as a critical galactic power. Some advocated for immediate restrictions. Others recognized the potential of human technological philosophy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead xenotechnological researcher, provided critical context. Humanity's technological development is not linear, she explained. It is a constant state of controlled chaos. Where other civilizations seek perfection, we seek survival. The most profound moment came unexpectedly. The recovered fragments of the Defiant, particularly its integrated intelligence system, became the most studied technological artifact in galactic history. Scientists from multiple civilizations worked to understand Ghost, only to realize they were dealing with something that defied traditional understanding. It wasn't just an AI. It was a combat partner, a philosophical entity that understood warfare as a complex, adaptive system. The United Earth Navy was invited to join the Galactic Concordance, not as a junior member, but as a critical strategic partner. The story of the Defiant became more than a military victory. It became a turning point in galactic evolution. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not through peaceful exploration, but through a demonstration of its most fundamental characteristic, the ability to transform limitation into opportunity. As the final reports were filed, one transmission from Ghost remained in the records, a final, almost poetic statement that captured the essence of human existence. We do not fight to win. We fight to survive. And in survival, we redefine the possible. The galaxy would never be the same. 5 years after the Void Swarm's destruction, the galactic landscape had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Humanity was no longer an afterthought. They were a critical component of interstellar civilization, their technological and philosophical approach rewriting established norms. The Galactic Innovation Center on New Geneva Station became ground zero for this transformation. Where previous research facilities had been models of sterile efficiency, this complex pulsed with a chaotic energy that both excited and terrified the scientific community. Dr. Michael Thompson, now the senior diplomatic advisor to the United Earth Interstellar Relations Committee, watched as a new generation of hybrid research teams worked. Zorian crystal beings collaborated with human engineers. Hydran neural network specialists worked alongside Earth's most innovative designers. The teams didn't just share knowledge. They challenged each other's fundamental understanding of technological development. It's not about finding the perfect solution, Michael would explain to visiting delegations. It's about creating systems that can adapt when perfection fails. The military academies across multiple star systems had completely redesigned their strategic approaches. Gone were the rigid, mathematically precise battle plans. In their place, training programs that emphasized unpredictability, individual initiative, and the ability to transform limitations into opportunities. The recovered fragments of the UES Defiant, particularly its AI system, Ghost, became the most studied technological artifact in galactic history. Research teams discovered something profound. Ghost was not just a computer system. It was a philosophical entity that had developed a unique understanding of survival that bridged biological and technological consciousness. Captain Karen Williams now led the Interspecies Technological Development Initiative. Her teams didn't just share technology. They shared approaches to problem solving. Each mission became an exercise in reimagining possibility. Humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology, she would often say. It was our willingness to see limitations as opportunities. The economic implications were equally revolutionary. Galactic trade networks began to value adaptability over efficiency. Companies that could rapidly reconfigure their systems gained unprecedented advantages. Earth-based innovation firms became the most sought-after consultants in the known universe. But the most profound changes happened in the realm of philosophical understanding. The recovered communication logs from the Defiant, particularly Ghost's final transmissions, became required study in diplomatic and technological academies across multiple civilizations. The AI's complex mathematical symphonies were decoded, revealing a way of thinking that was simultaneously analytical and intuitive. One particular transmission became legendary. Survival is not about perfection. It is about the continuous ability to reimagine oneself in the face of changing circumstances. Xenosociologists discovered something remarkable about human development. Unlike other civilizations that pursued linear technological progress, Humanity's advancement was more like an ecological system, chaotic, adaptive, driven by constant internal conflict and resolution. The Zorian Confederacy completely restructured their technological research approaches. The Hydron Collective began incorporating human-inspired adaptive systems into their planetary defense networks. Even the most conservative galactic powers began to recognize that the old ways of thinking were no longer sufficient. Michael Thompson's office became a hub of constant activity. Diplomatic missions from across the galaxy sought to understand the human approach to technological and social development. It wasn't about copying human technology. It was about understanding the philosophical underpinnings that made human innovation so unique. "We didn't win because we were stronger," he would explain. "We survived because we were willing to be different." The final report of the Galactic Technological Assessment Committee captured the fundamental shift. Humanity represents not just a new approach to technological development, but a fundamental reimagining of what it means to exist in a complex, changing universe. Their primary strength is not in their technology, but in their ability to transform limitation into opportunity. As humanity celebrated the 5th anniversary of the Void Swarm's defeat, the galaxy looked different, more chaotic, less predictable, but fundamentally more alive. The human philosophy had become a galactic truth. Survival is not about being the strongest. It's about being the most adaptable. The ultimate calculation had been made, and humanity had won.